Have you ever felt that pit in your stomach when someone manipulates you and you can't do anything to stop it? Listen carefully to what I'm about to reveal, because you're on the verge of discovering something that challenges everything you thought you knew about human influence. There exists an ancient code, a silent dance between minds and wills, where most follow rules that never worked, while a few know the secret moves that transform influence into absolute dominance. I'm not talking about cheap tricks or superficial deceptions, but something much deeper and more unsettling. The understanding that everything you were taught about persuading others was a carefully constructed lie to keep you in the mediocrity of control. If this has already made you think for a second, hit the like button right now, because what I'm about to share could revolutionize every human interaction in your life. Let's go down this path together. Let's be ruthlessly honest with yourself for a moment. Do you know that devastating feeling of watching someone else get exactly what you wanted? That terrible moment where you remain motionless, invisible, reduced to being a silent witness to your own irrelevance. The frustration that gnaws at you when you always end up being the go-to advisor everyone seeks out to vent about their problems, while inside you're tearing yourself apart with helplessness because no one truly listens to your ideas or follows your advice. That feeling of being eternally transparent to those you truly want to influence, as if you were a benevolent ghost condemned to observe from the shadows, while others pull the world's strings. All that you feel, all that anguish that accompanies you on lonely nights, ends today. Because what I'm about to reveal isn't just a method, it's the understanding of a secret code that approximately 3% of people know and consciously apply. It's extremely rare to find someone who truly masters these principles in practice because they go against all the social conditioning we've received since childhood. Most live trapped in an invisible cage, following rules designed to keep them docile and manipulable, while a silent elite governs from the shadows using the psychological weapons Machiavelli understood centuries ago. You've tried everything, haven't you? You've already bought those self-help books that promise to teach you how to positively influence others. You've already tried to be kind, considerate, and reasonable, believing that logic and kindness are enough to persuade. You've already been that super attentive person who responds immediately, who's always available, because you thought constant accessibility was synonymous with respect. And where did all that lead you? Straight to the zone of irrelevance, that emotional limbo where good intentions turn into social invisibility. The brutal truth is, you were programmed to fail from the start. Society, inspirational movies, even your own teachers, all taught you the wrong path. They told you to be gentle, polite, respectful, and don't get me wrong, those are important qualities to be a good human being, but alone, isolated from other, more primitive and powerful elements, they don't create that unstoppable influence that makes people unable to get you out of their minds. Do you know what does create it? Calculated mystery, strategic tension, a perfect balance between the predictable and the unexpected that activates the deepest instincts of those you want to dominate. Think with me for a moment. Why does that leader who isn't even that intelligent manage to get everyone to follow their ideas? Why does that mediocre negotiator always get better terms than you? Because they possess that unwavering understanding of human behavior that makes people gravitate around them like planets around the sun. Real influence doesn't happen in logic. It doesn't unfold in the realm of rational conversations and convincing arguments. It happens in instinct, in the subconscious, in those primitive layers of the brain where decisions are made before the conscious mind even realizes it. Do you think people consciously choose who to follow, who to respect, who to obey? Of course not. It's their primitive brain that decides. That ancestral part that comes from times when survival depended on choosing the right leader. And that brain doesn't care about your good intentions or your impeccable logic. It cares about subconscious signals of value, social dominance, and protective ability. Now, before you think I'm telling you to become a ruthless tyrant, relax. It's not about being cruel or manipulative in the toxic sense. It's about understanding the ancient dance between minds that occurs in every human interaction. It's about triggering the right responses at the precise moment, striking those emotional chords that resonate at frequencies most people don't even know exist. I spent over a decade studying this, testing it on the battleground of human interactions, observing what works and what miserably falls apart. And what I discovered goes against everything preached by the communication experts who swarm around selling sweet but ineffective advice. The first psychological weapon Machiavelli perfectly understood is the devastating power of calculated unpredictability. Want to know the secret no one tells you? People don't follow those who are predictable, those they can anticipate, those who act exactly as expected. They follow those they can't fully decipher, those who generate that insatiable curiosity that activates the brain's reward centers. Paradoxical, isn't it? The more predictable you are, the less impact you'll have on others. The more consistent and stable you appear, the more invisible you'll become to their minds. It's a contradiction that defies all conventional logic, but it's a psychological truth as solid as the laws of physics. But how do you implement this without becoming unbearably erratic? How do you create that aura of unpredictable mystery without appearing insane or unstable? Mental seduction doesn't begin with a simple, polite hello that vanishes into thin air without a trace. It begins with a break, a fracture in the expected, a spark in the silence that awakens something dormant in the other. Forget everything you were told about traditional introductions. Forget that robotic, "How are you?" that dies the moment it's uttered and immediately categorizes your interaction as just another run-of-the-mill encounter. The first move isn't about being likable or harmless. It's about taking control of the emotional rhythm from the very first second, establishing that you're not just another one in the herd of predictable people who interact with worn-out patterns and approaches they've heard 1,000 times. Imagine approaching someone influential, but instead of being predictable like everyone else, you say something like, "You seem like someone who hates superficial conversations but secretly loves chaos. Am I wrong?" In that moment, something changes in their expression. They pause, they blink. Their brain revs up like an engine that just got high-octane fuel. Why does this happen? Because you've interrupted their automatic pattern, that mental filter programmed to automatically discard generic people who approach them. In that instant, you are no longer one of them. You've made them curious, and curiosity is the gateway drug to influence. This is what most people never grasp. The first interaction is the foundation of the entire game that comes after. It's like the opening move in chess. It sets the tempo for the entire game. It defines the emotional battlefield. If you open weak with something common and predictable, you've already put yourself on the defensive. You'll spend the rest of the interaction chasing attention, trying to regain lost ground. But if you open strong with something unexpected, poetic, or slightly absurd, you gain the frame advantage. Now, the other person is in your world, playing by your rules. This is the first weapon. It's not about exactly what you say, but about how sharply you cut through the everyday noise. It's about projecting a clear psychological signal. I'm not here to impress you with desperation. I'm here to see if you're worth my attention. And this isn't just verbal. It's energetic. It's your tone, your timing, the deliberate calm in your speech, that slight smile as if you already know how this is all going to end. People who approach with high-frequency, predictable phrases are discarded by the subconscious in seconds. But a person who moves with a sense of controlled unpredictability becomes a question everyone wants to answer. Never forget this. The human brain is designed to detect patterns and predict behaviors. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism. When you become strategically unpredictable, you force the other person's brain to pay attention, to focus on you, to try to decipher you. You've hijacked their attention because you represent an anomaly that must be processed, understood, categorized. People are attracted to what they don't immediately understand. So be the enigma, be the disruption, be the one who speaks, not to impress with pretty words, but to provoke something inside them they'd forgotten they could feel. When your first move makes them pause and think, the game is already yours. This doesn't mean being weird or artificially mysterious. It means understanding that every human interaction has psychological pressure points, small cracks where you can insert an emotional wedge that separates the other person from their usual thought patterns. When you do this, you've created mental space for your influence to seep in and take root. Machiavelli understood that the prince who was entirely predictable to his subjects soon lost his power. Fear and admiration require a certain degree of uncertainty. Will he punish this time or be lenient? Will he reward loyalty or demand more proof? This calculated uncertainty keeps everyone on edge, attentive, eager to please. The second psychological weapon is where the entire foundation of dominance begins to harden into something unbreakable, something untouchable, something extraordinarily rare in the modern world: the aura of silent power. This is where we separate the amateurs from the masters, those who play at influence from those who truly bend wills. True power isn't what you say, it's what you don't need to say. You see, people perceive everything before you open your mouth. They read your essence. They observe how you sit, how long you hold eye contact, whether your presence fills the room or begs for space. True power is silent. It walks unannounced, speaks slowly, moves with certainty, and above all, does not fear loss. That is the posture you need to embody. I don't need you, but I'm also not afraid of you. This is the posture that turns the entire power dynamic on its head. Once you learn it, others begin to qualify themselves to you instead of you having to prove your worth to them. Let me make it visual so you fully understand. Think about the last time you walked into a car showroom. The salesperson who hounded you, who clung to you like a shadow, who kept asking you, "Do you like it? Do you want to test drive it?" What do you think? They exuded a desperation you could smell, and you instantly had the advantage, because their neediness diminished their value in your eyes. Now imagine another salesperson. They greet you calmly, show you the car with elegance, then quietly retreat. He knows what he's offering. He knows you'll feel it if it's right for you. Suddenly, you feel the need to prove you're worthy of the deal. You start asking questions. You start justifying your interest. It's exactly the same in power dynamics. When you demonstrate that your life is complete, rich in purpose, full of joy, anchored in strength with or without the approval of others, you become the prize, not the desperate hunter, not the emotional beggar who pleads for attention and recognition. And people don't follow those they pity. They follow those they respect, those who represent something they wish to achieve or experience. How do you radiate this attitude through your body? Because words lie, but energy never lies. Shoulders relaxed, yet strong. Upright posture that speaks of dignity. Unwavering eye. Contact that doesn't apologize for existing. Slow and steady breathing. Precise and intentional movements as if you own time itself. No shaky hands, no nervously bouncing legs, no rapid, anxious speech. You speak as if you trust your silence, because studies show that over 90% of communication is nonverbal. Others don't just hear you, they feel you in every fiber of their being. And if your energy says, "Please listen to me, please follow me," they will retreat even if your words say something completely different. But if your presence says, "You're welcome to join me, but I don't bend for approval," they lean into you because detachment is intoxicating. It's addictive. It's what most people never manage to convey. This is the paradox that changes everything. The less you seek validation, the more your power multiplies in the eyes of others. So remember, don't chase their attention, chase your own inner power, because when a person becomes magnetic from within, everything on the outside begins to orbit around them as if they were the gravitational center of their own universe. And here's a crucial component of this weapon: strategic neglect, the seductive art of stepping back right at the peak of connection. This is the most counterintuitive of all principles, but one that Machiavelli perfectly understood. Not because you don't care, but because you understand one of the most powerful truths about human psychology. Absence creates obsession. Emptiness generates desperate longing. You know that perfect moment when the conversation flows effortlessly, when ideas resonate, when you have everyone hanging on your every word. That's not the time to push forward and wring every last drop out of that connection. That's the time to leave, to disappear, precisely when everything feels most alive and promising. Yes, exactly. At the highest point, right when it feels most electric and full of possibilities. You simply say, "I'd love to continue this, but I have to go. Let's pick this up another time." What happens next isn't logical. It's completely chemical and primitive. The other person's brain releases a significant amount of dopamine, and then you disappear. You've just become the episode that ends on a cliffhanger, the song that cuts off at the best part, the book that closes just as the plot gets interesting. Think about the last addictive series you watched. It didn't explain everything. It didn't resolve all the plot lines. It left you hungry for more. That's what you must become. Not the 3-hour movie that drags on until everyone loses interest, but the tense, suspenseful episode that leaves them breathless and counting the days until the next season. This means you don't respond the moment they message you. You're not available every time they need you. You live your life. You move through your world like someone with a mission, someone who has options, purpose, their own gravity, because when others notice your absence, their emotional radar activates in a way they can't control. The third Machiavellian psychological weapon is perhaps the most powerful and the least understood: strategic mind reading. We're not talking about psychic powers or fairground tricks, but something much more subtle and scientific: the ability to read human patterns, to anticipate reactions, to understand hidden motivations before they manifest. Machiavelli was a master at this. He understood that to dominate others, he first had to understand them better than they understood themselves. And there lies the real power, in that crystal clear moment where you can see through social masks and touch the true springs that drive human behavior. Every person you meet operates under specific psychological patterns, like a computer program that executes predictable commands once you know its source code. Some respond to flattery, others to challenge. Some are moved by fear, others by ambition. Your job isn't to judge these patterns, but to identify them with surgical precision and then use them as levers of influence. Most people live in a state of emotional blindness. They don't understand why they do what they do, feel what they feel, desire what they desire. This ignorance makes them manipulable to anyone who can read between the lines. Where does this strategic mind reading begin? Not in what they say, but in the patterns they unconsciously reveal. Observe how they dress. Do they seek attention or try to go unnoticed? Observe how they talk about their achievements. Do they openly boast or downplay them with false modesty? Observe how they treat those who can offer them nothing. There lies their true character. Observe which topics ignite passion in their eyes and which ones dim them. There lie their true motivations. A person who wears flashy clothes and surrounds themselves with status symbols is screaming for external validation. Their insecurity is your leverage point. They need approval, like others need oxygen. A person who speaks little but observes much is calculating every move. Their need for control is both their strength and their weakness. Someone who constantly mentions their past achievements lives tormented by the fear of future irrelevance. Mind reading isn't magic, it's precision. The silent art of reading what others want before they even know it themselves. Because every human being leaves subtle signals, not in their words, but in their patterns. The way they dress, the speed of their voice, the rhythm of their walk, what they post online, where they go, what they avoid. You're no longer just a person interacting. You're an emotional detective reading between the lines, tracking the energy behind the words, sensing the signals they don't say aloud. A person who wears flashy, shiny jewelry is screaming for attention. They want the spotlight and confirmation that they still matter. A person in subtle, elegant tones is deeper, more private. They yearn to be understood, not just superficially seen. Observe their way of speaking. If they speak fast, gesticulate widely, they are spontaneous, reactive, guided by pure emotion. If they speak slowly, carefully, they are calculating, guarded, strategic in every move. And when you adjust your energy to match their hidden nature, when you mirror what they truly need without them asking for it, you become irresistible because you're not offering what they're consciously demanding. You're offering what they're secretly dying to receive. That is the real power. The understanding that every human being hungers for something they can't even articulate. The insecure person doesn't want constant flattery. They want the feeling of security that comes from sensing someone truly sees them. The controller doesn't want absolute dominance. They want the release of knowing someone else can take the helm sometimes. The arrogant person doesn't seek more praise. They seek the peace that comes from not having to constantly prove their worth. When you understand these subterranean needs, you hold the keys to the kingdom. You can speak directly to the other person's subconscious, creating a connection that transcends logic. You become the solution to a problem they didn't even know they had. And here's the most powerful application of this weapon: strategic anticipation. When you understand someone's patterns, you can predict their moves with astonishing accuracy. You know which buttons to press to get the reaction you desire. You know which topics to avoid so as not to trigger their defenses. You know when to advance and when to retreat. This gives you an almost supernatural advantage in any interaction. While others react, you anticipate. While they are surprised, you've already prepared your next move. You become the chess player who sees 10 moves ahead while your opponent is barely trying to decipher your last move. Machiavelli understood that the prince who knew the true motivations of his subjects and advisors would never be betrayed by surprise. He could always detect disloyalty before it manifested, always reward devotion before it wavered. This deep knowledge was more valuable than entire armies. The fourth dimension of the Machiavellian arsenal is calculated audacity, the moment of truth where all previous weapons align for a devastating attack. This is the point where most fail miserably, where all previous foundations crumble if you don't have the courage to act at the perfect moment. You created unpredictability, built a powerful aura, read their psychological patterns. Now you need to act with absolute decisiveness. And this is where fear appears in all its ugliness. The fear of rejection, the fear of ruining everything you've built, the fear of being seen as intrusive or inappropriate. But let me tell you a secret that will transform your perspective forever. Hesitation kills more opportunities than rejection itself. Doubt is instantly perceived by the other person's subconscious as weakness, as a lack of conviction in your own worth. And nothing destroys respect faster than the perception of insecurity. Most people confuse audacity with recklessness, but they are two completely different energies. Recklessness is acting without information, without strategy, simply leaping into the void. Calculated audacity, on the other hand, is the precise and decisive move that happens at exactly the right moment, based on all the information you've gathered. When you feel the moment is right, act without asking permission, without asking if you can. Read the signals and move forward with the confidence of someone who understands the silent language of power. It could be presenting that revolutionary idea in the meeting when everyone is stuck. It could be proposing that radical change when the organization is vulnerable. It could be that ultimatum in the negotiation when you've detected that the other side is about to yield. Calculated audacity is what separates leaders from followers, those who make history from those who merely read it. It's what gets you mentioned in important conversations when you're not present. It's what creates impactful memories they can't forget, even if they wanted to. Machiavelli observed that men generally judge more by their eyes than by their hands, for everyone can see, but few can touch. What this means is that the perception of audacity matters even more than its immediate results. When you act with absolute decisiveness, even if you encounter initial resistance, you have planted the seed of respect that will blossom over time. Are you ready for this level of intensity and commitment? Audacity isn't just about dramatic moments. Sometimes, the greatest audacity lies in silent consistency, in standing firm when everyone around you bends, in defending an unpopular position because you know it's right, in calmly saying no when everyone expects an anxious yes. True audacity is born from internal congruence. It's not an act you put on. It's a natural manifestation of your conviction. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more natural it seems, the more powerful it becomes. You shouldn't telegraph your intention. You shouldn't hesitate. You act like someone who's done it 1,000 times. Not because you're desperate, but because you are self-possessed. Your decisive move doesn't ask for permission. Read the reaction. If they lean into your proposal, you know it. If they retreat, you adapt. Because Machiavellian audacity isn't invasive, it's observant. It listens to subtle responses. And when used correctly, it makes others feel something terribly rare in the modern world. The presence of someone who is in control of themselves and attuned to them at the same time. That's magnetic. That's what keeps them up at night, because long after the words are forgotten, they'll remember how you made them feel. Not in their mind, in their nervous system, etched as a visceral experience that no logic can erase. Now that you know the Machiavellian psychological weapons, it's time to understand how to implement them as a unified system. Because here's the trap most people fall into. They try to do everything instantly. Gorge on techniques, force results, imitate, act, play a script that isn't theirs. But this isn't acting. This is the embodiment of your true power. So slow down, start with just one weapon. Apply it for a week until it becomes real, until it becomes a part of you. Then another and another, until the system isn't something you memorize, but something you are. Because this method I'm revealing to you isn't about becoming someone else. It's about unleashing the strategist society buried under years of conditioning, which made you believe that real influence was something immoral or unattainable. Wake up once and for all. Time is slipping away while you stay there brooding, overanalyzing every possibility. Others are already using this and getting results while you're still watching, still doubting, still wondering if this really works. Ask yourself, in 5 years, do you want to be in the exact same place with the same silent frustrations, watching that person you admired implement your ideas as if they were their own? Or do you want to be the person they can't ignore, the person who never begs for attention, the person who chooses instead of being chosen? That choice is yours and always has been, but remember this as if your life depended on it. Knowledge without action is dead. You can consume 100 videos, read 100 books, but if you don't step onto the battlefield of human influence, you'll remain trapped in impotent theory forever. Here's the brutal truth no one wants to tell you. Most people who hear this will do nothing. They'll remain the same. They'll continue to be invisible until irrelevance. They'll remain trapped in the zone of the ignored, the zone of the underestimated for all eternity. But not you. You're not like most. You're still here, still listening intently, still absorbing every word with a hunger for transformation. You can be the exception, the one who took this and transformed everything. So stop doubting, stop blaming circumstances, stop waiting for the perfect moment that will never arrive. The world isn't going to wait forever, while you decide to act like the powerful person you truly are inside. The people who now hold the power you deserve aren't going to voluntarily yield their place to you. You'll have to take it with these silent weapons I've just given you. And remember, true power doesn't announce itself, doesn't boast, doesn't seek applause. It operates in the shadows, pulls invisible strings, changes reality without anyone realizing exactly how it happened. As Machiavelli said, nothing makes a prince so much esteemed as great undertakings and setting extraordinary examples of himself. Be extraordinary not in your words, but in your strategic moves. Be unpredictable to spark curiosity. Cultivate an aura of silent power that makes others orbit around you. Read others' minds through their unconscious patterns. And when the time comes, act with that calculated audacity that separates players from observers. This is the complete system. These aren't superficial tricks. They are ancient principles of human influence that have moved empires and changed the course of history. They are in your hands now. The question is, will you have the courage to use them? The world is divided into two types of people: those who understand the secret code of power, and those condemned to be manipulated by those who do. Today I have given you a philosophical scalpel capable of dissecting any human interaction down to its most basic components. It's not knowledge for the weak nor for those who fear their own shadow. It's for those willing to look at human nature without moralizing filters, just as Machiavelli did centuries ago. The real question you must ask yourself now, while the words still resonate in your mind, is, will you remain a pawn on others' chessboard? Or will you take control as the invisible strategist who moves the pieces from the shadows? Time is running out for those who hesitate. While you contemplate these ideas, others are already implementing them, dominating wills, conquering minds, absorbing power. If this message has penetrated your consciousness, comment, "I dominate unseen," so I know you're ready for the next level. But remember, whoever doesn't apply this knowledge doesn't just lose opportunities. They voluntarily become a tool for those who do use it. The choice, as always, is solely yours.